The plasma bolt was already in the air before I even saw the shooter. I was running across broken rock, dust kicking up around my boots, when I caught the flash of light out of the corner of my eye. It came from the ridge above us, a burning streak of blue-white energy cutting through the dark. There was no time to shout a warning, no time to think about what came next. My body moved on its own, the way it does when training takes over, and thought gets left behind. I threw myself sideways, and put my chest between the princess and the blast. Her name was Velara. I had known her for exactly 6 days. 6 days of escorting her through hostile territory. 6 days of watching her people argue about whether a human guard could even be trusted to protect royal blood. I did not have an answer for them then. I gave them one now. The impact felt like being hit by a truck made of fire. It threw me backward off my feet and slammed me into the dirt. The world tilted, turned white, then dimmed at the edges like someone was closing a curtain around my eyes. I heard her voice before anything else went dark. She was screaming my name, not a title, not a rank. My name, over and over, like it could hold me here if she said it enough times. Then there was nothing. No dreams, no sense of time passing. Just a long, silent stretch of black that I would later learn lasted 3 years. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Clean, almost sweet, like flowers I did not recognize. The second thing I noticed was the light, soft and gold, nothing like the harsh white of a military medical bay. I blinked hard, waiting for my eyes to adjust, and when they did, I found myself staring up at a ceiling carved with patterns I had never seen before, gold lines twisting into shapes that looked almost like stars falling into each other. I tried to sit up, and my whole body screamed in protest. Every muscle felt like it had been asleep for 100 years. My throat was dry, my voice cracked when I tried to speak, and for a moment I thought I might still be dreaming. Then I heard armor shifting near the door, and I turned my head to see 2 guards standing at attention. They were not human, tall, with skin like polished bronze, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that glowed faintly gold. I recognized the uniform. It belonged to the Royal Guard of the Sil-Korath line, the same people I had been sent to protect. Both of them dropped to one knee the moment they saw me stir. "Your Majesty," one of them said, voice low and full of something that sounded almost like reverence. "You are awake." I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "I am not a king," I said, my voice rough and unfamiliar even to my own ears. "I am a soldier. My name is Daniel Whitmore. That is all I am." The guard did not lift his eyes from the floor. "That is not what the records say, sir," he answered quietly. "That is not what the people say either." Before I could ask what he meant, the door opened, and she walked in. Velara. She looked different, older, somehow, though I could not have said by how many years since I had no memory of any of them passing. Her hair was longer now, braided back with threads of pale silver, and she wore robes far heavier and more formal than the traveling clothes I remembered from the ridge. But her eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, and right now, wide with something between disbelief and relief. She crossed the room in a few quick steps and stopped at the edge of the bed, her hand hovering like she was afraid to touch me and find out I was not really there. "You are awake," she whispered, echoing the guard's words, but softer, more fragile. "We were told it might never happen, that the damage was too deep, that even our best healers could only slow what the plasma had already done." "How long?" I asked. "How long was I gone?" 3 years, she said. The words did not make sense at first. 3 years. I tried to picture what that meant, tried to imagine 3 years passing without me in them, my body frozen somewhere between life and death, while the galaxy kept turning without waiting for me to catch up. "I have missed everything," I said, more to myself than to her. "You have missed nothing," she answered, and something in her voice made me look at her properly. "You have become something none of us expected, something none of us were ready for." "I do not understand," I said. She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, folding her hands in her lap the way someone does when they are about to explain something difficult. "When you shielded me," she began, "our people saw it happen. Every guard on that ridge witnessed it. The recordings were shared across every world in our system within a single day. A human, a stranger to our ways, throwing himself into the path of death for someone he had known less than a week. Our people do not take such acts lightly. Among the Sil-Korath, sacrifice for the royal line is the oldest and most sacred bond there is. It has shaped our laws since before written history. Anyone who gives everything, and survives, becomes tied to the crown itself. I felt my stomach drop. Tied to the crown how? I asked, though some part of me had already guessed the answer, and did not want to hear it confirmed. My father died 8 months after you fell, she said quietly. An illness that had been growing in him for years, one none of the healers could stop. Under our law, the line does not simply pass to me alone. It passes through the one who proved themselves willing to die for it. That was you. I stared at her, waiting for the joke, waiting for some sign that this was some strange misunderstanding that could be explained away. But her face held no humor at all. They named you king the moment your survival was confirmed, she said. Not because you asked for it. Not because you understood our politics or our history, but because our oldest law demanded it, and no one, not even the council, dared to argue against a law that old. I laughed, though there was no humor in it either. I do not know your language beyond a few words, I said. I do not know your customs. I do not know how to rule people who are not even my own kind. I am not the man for this. You are exactly the man for this, she said, her voice suddenly firm. Because you did not calculate the cost before you moved. You did not weigh what it would mean for your career, your safety, your future. You simply acted. Our nobles calculate everything. They weigh loyalty like currency. You gave without measuring what it would take from you. That is rarer here than you can imagine. I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing at all. She stood, smoothing her robes, and looked toward the door. There will be a gathering tonight, she said. The council wishes to see you. Some will welcome you. Others will not. I will not lie to you about that. There are those among our people who believe the throne should never be worn by someone born beyond our stars. Then let them believe it, I said. I never asked to wear it. That may be true, she said softly, but you are wearing it now. The gathering that night was held in a hall so large, it made my chest tighten just looking at it. Ceilings stretching up into shadow, banners hanging from pillars carved to look like flowing water frozen mid-motion. I stood at the top of a set of wide stone steps in clothes that were not mine, stiff formal robes someone had dressed me in, while I was still trying to remember how to walk properly again. Rows of nobles stood below, watching me the way people watch something they are not sure is safe to trust. Some bowed their heads as I passed. Others simply stared, arms crossed, faces unreadable. Near the front stood a tall figure with sharp, narrow eyes, and a voice that carried before he even reached me. His name, I would later learn, was Corvain, a senior member of the council, and one of the loudest voices against my presence there. A soldier from a world we barely know, he said, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. Wearing the crown of a bloodline that has ruled for 1,000 years. Tell me, stranger, what do you know of our laws, our history, our people, beyond the single moment you happened to be standing in the right place? The hall went quiet, waiting to see how I would answer. I do not know your laws, I said honestly. I do not know your history the way your scholars do. I have been asleep for 3 years while your world kept moving without me. But I know what it feels like to choose someone else's life over my own, without stopping to think about it first. And if that is not enough for you, then perhaps you should ask yourself what your own laws are truly built on. Corvain's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more, and the murmurs that followed were less certain than before. That should have been the end of the tension for the night, but it was not. Halfway through the gathering, as musicians played something slow and unfamiliar in the corner of the hall, I noticed movement near one of the side doors. A guard, who should not have been there, moving too quickly, hand slipping toward something hidden beneath his cloak. Years of training do not disappear, even after 3 years of sleep. I moved before my mind fully understood what I was seeing, crossing the space between us in a few fast steps, catching his wrist before the weapon could clear his cloak. The hall erupted into shouting, guards rushing forward, and within seconds the man was pinned and disarmed, his weapon skidding harmlessly across the floor. He was working with Corvain, one of the loyal guards confirmed later, once the man had been taken away for questioning, part of a group who believed a foreign king would weaken the bloodline's strength in the eyes of other worlds. Vayara found me afterward in a quiet side chamber, my hands still slightly shaking from the rush of it all. "You did not hesitate," she said, watching me carefully. "Even after everything, even confused and unprepared, you still moved to protect people who do not even fully trust you yet. That is not a choice," I told her. "It is just what I do." "That," she said, "is exactly why the law chose you." In the weeks that followed, I learned slowly. I learned enough of their language to understand court proceedings without needing translation. I learned the names of the great council houses, the old rivalries between them, the delicate balance that held the kingdom together. I made mistakes. I misjudged customs. I offended traditions I did not know existed. But every time I failed to understand their politics, I fell back on the one thing I did understand completely, which was people, and what it meant to protect them without asking what it would cost me first. Slowly, the whispers around the halls began to change. Fewer nobles crossed their arms when I passed. More of them bowed with something that looked less like duty and more like respect. One evening, months into this strange new life, I found Vayara standing alone on a balcony overlooking the city, its light stretching out beneath us like scattered stars fallen to the ground. "Do you regret it?" she asked without turning around. "The moment on the ridge, if you had known everything it would cost you, the years lost, the crown you never wanted, would you still have done it?" I stepped up beside her, looking out over the same view. "I did not think about cost that day," I said. "I only thought about you standing there, and the fact that you would not be standing there much longer if I did nothing. Everything after that, the years asleep, the crown, all of it, that was never the price I was thinking about paying. It was just what came after." She finally turned to look at me, and for the first time since I had woken up, there was no politics in her expression at all, only something quieter and more honest. "Then I am glad it was you on that ridge," she said, "and no one else." I looked out over the city lights with her, a world I had not chosen, wearing a title I had never asked for, standing beside someone I had once protected without a second thought, and now found myself protecting again, day after day, in ways far quieter than plasma fire, and far harder to walk away from. I did not become king because I understood their laws, or their history, or their politics. I became king because on a dark ridge under enemy fire, I forgot to calculate the cost of staying alive, and chose instead to make sure someone else did. That, it turned out, was the only qualification their oldest law had ever required.